Russ Mitchell, good afternoon. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Good to hear your voice, brother. Let's kick some tires and light some fires. Hey, first, what were the name of those sponsors again who are helping pay for your show down there in Nolan?
Well, it's Cambria Hotel and Suites. They've been kind of enough to allow us to set up shop here in Tuscaloosa. Here in New Orleans. Family Medicine of Tuscaloosa, the Rustic Rehab, and Tidal Towel.
That's good. You know, I think folks forget that this entertainment doesn't come for free, so someone's paying for it. So we thank those people that pay for that. So let's talk some football. There's something going on this weekend with y'all, huh?
Yeah, just a little something. I don't know. It's a game that it's a game that I think they get a trophy if Alabama wins this one on Monday, at least somewhat of a trophy.
They're going to have to build new walls in Nick Saban's office for all his trophies, brother. But I'll tell you, I don't know if we want to start with this right out of the gate, but I think y'all will be going home after this game disappointed. We talk
Russ
every
Mitchell.
year.
Russ,
I know.
Why do you
Go
say
ahead,
that
brother.
for?
Well, we thought, part of the reason why I thought Auburn was going to handle you in the Iron Bowl this year was a bad matchup. And, once again, this is not a good matchup for Alabama. And, I mean, clearly, I like Nick Saban. I think he's one of the best coaches in the history of college football, clearly. And, you give a cat like that 4 weeks to prepare for anything, and he's going to come up with some wrinkles. But, this is a Clemson team that's been built as sort of the anti-Alabama. It's sort of like the Alabama kryptonite, this Clemson team, and we saw that over the last 2 years. They match up really well against you, and they pose a lot of nightmares. And this is an Alabama, the weakness for Clemson heading into this year was in the backfield, and they've improved dramatically from the first, opening game against Auburn all the way to now. Whereas I think Alabama has regressed. It was an ugly November. The LSU game was ugly. LSU's only played 2 teams with a winning record this year. Folks in the Bayou are like, the Tigers are 9-3. You played 2 teams with a winning record, and one of them, A&M, fired their coach. So to allow LSU to come into your stadium and play you as competitively as they did, and then the Starkville game was, so while Clemson has improved as the year's gone along, I don't think you can say the same thing for Alabama.
Russ, sometimes you have to give us the hard truth. What is wrong with this Alabama team, the way that you see it?
Well, and by the way, we say wrong. I mean, you're ranked in the top 4 in the country, so we got to be a little careful. I know you all set your expectations at, like, number 1. This is still an elite program with an elite roster and an elite coaching staff. But, there's a couple things in particular when we talk about matchups. Bill Connolly from SB Nation had a really good column out this week. I talked for a long time about how Jalen Hurts, he's very effective throwing the ball short range passes, right? I've said this for over a year. And Clemson's defense is particularly good at sniffing that out. Speed, agility, lateral move. I mean, this defense will play the pass inside 5 yards from the line of scrimmage very aggressively. And when you look at Jalen, y'all haven't really given him a lot of options to throw the ball this year. He hasn't had a lot of practice. And if you think that you're going to be able to control that space on the field, you're not. Clemson's defense is, at least throwing the ball. And this game's going to come down to passing. And ultimately, I don't think Alabama's offense is equipped with Jalen Hurts to be able to do that.
But, Russ, and to counter that, I mean, Clemson's not played up to perfection either. I mean, they went on the road and lost to, what is a 4-8 Syracuse team?
Yeah, without their quarterback. I'll say this. The one thing about Clemson that's been troubling to me throughout the year is that they play up and down to their competition. So, if they're playing an elite, and that's a sign of immaturity, an immature team, not coaching. That's a sign, if you play down to weaker opponents and then up to better opponents, if you look at Alabama during their heyday, LSU during their heyday, Florida during their heyday, really any team that's dominated for a period of time, they crush weak opponents, and Clemson has not been as effective doing that this year. However, I expect them to play up for Alabama just like they've played up for many of the better teams that they've played.
All right, Russ, let me go back here just for a couple of minutes, okay? Because we've talked about this. You and I have talked about this before. This Alabama and Clemson game is it's more than just a chance to go to Atlanta. This, in my opinion, Clemson could pull up, as probably the premier program right now currently in college football. Would you agree if they get the win over Alabama and they go on to win the national title that they're right now pull up at least side by side with Alabama, if not a little bit ahead?
They pass Alabama if they beat Alabama in this game.
Oh, come on, Russ. We didn't want to hear this, man. I mean, you
know it. You all know it. You just don't want to put voice to it. This is a Clemson team that you literally doesn't Dabo, if he wins this game, doesn't his win-loss record pass Nick's? I'm pretty sure it does. And if he wins the championship game, I think it passes Barrett Bryant.
What do you mean? His first percentage?
Percentage. So, by the way, so all the snide comments about Dabo need to stop right now.
So maybe we should just fire Nick Saban and go hire Dabo. Is that what you're saying?
I am not saying that at all.
Okay. I just put words in your mouth. I'm sorry.
There's something, but you asked me in the present, which was the question, if Clemson beats Alabama. I think Clemson beats Alabama by 12 to 13 points.
God, Russ.
I know, brother. And we saw how you handle this. Just ask yourself a question. If you're playing defense and you're facing Alabama, do you want to tackle Harris, Scarborough, right, or Hurts? Who do you want to tackle?
Well, I mean, I would say with the way that. Why do you say that though?
Well, because the other two can hurt you when you're trying to tackle them, right? I mean,
okay, I see where you're going. Okay.
He might be able to juke you and make you miss. Harrison Scarborough can hurt you when you tackle them. Those are big, strong kids. So I think you're going to see. We saw it in the Auburn game. You saw it a little bit in the Mississippi State game. I think you're going to see Clemson's defense line up to take away in the run option in particular. I think line up to take away the running backs and make I'd rather have it be all about Jalen Hurts. Let him run, let him throw, let him get worn out, control the 5 yards down, 5 and in from the line of scrimmage, which is where Jalen likes to throw the ball. Not to say he can't throw the ball deep, he can. How many times have we seen Ridley catch a pass across the middle of the field? I'm just saying where his strength is, I expect Clemson to come up from the line of scrimmage and make this game all about Jalen Hurts.
Russ, I wish you could read the text messages and the direct messages that I'm getting right now on Twitter. You've always been like a fan-friendly guy. I mean, they love you, Russ, but they're hating you in the last 10 minutes. Guy.
Y'all hated me after I said Auburn would whip you, and nobody sent me any flowers after that. No one said thank you, Russ, for telling us what was going to happen. I gave you
credit before I came into this segment. I gave you credit just a couple of minutes ago when we were coming in. But, I mean, you're giving us like, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like a kick in the gut today on a Thursday afternoon. I mean, go ahead and kick us again. Might as well.
This is a bad matchup, brother. This is not a good matchup for you this year. And, and you could argue even in the last couple of years. This is, Clemson's played Alabama better than just about any team in America over the last 2 years. And I think they're better this year, and I don't think Alabama's playing as well as they have the last 2 years.
Wow. So if Alabama, let's take your scenario. You said Alabama loses by double digits, okay? If Alabama loses by double digits, what happens? I mean, does Nick Saban, is there a complete over? I mean, what happens? I mean, we're not accustomed to losing by this many points, but I mean, if it happens the way that you say it, I mean, we're going to be going by Tuscaloosa with tail between our legs. But I mean, does Nick Saban look at himself in the mirror and go, hey, we got to look at a quarterback competition in the spring, and we're going to open this whole entire thing up. Forget about quarterback. It's all 22 guys.
We got to save some time for we got Georgia. We got to talk a little about Georgia, Oklahoma too. But
I know. Yeah. You grab my attention when you say Alabama's going to get beat by 2 touchdowns.
This is what I love about you too, because of all the shows I go on across America, in terms of supporting the home team, you do a better job of supporting the home team and letting your guests talk about their team than just about any radio host I know. But I would say this: Nick has done a fantastic job of adapting to college football as it's evolved over his lifetime, over his nearly 70-year lifetime. He's done an excellent job of adapting where guys like Les Miles refuse to adapt. And the one thing I would say is throughout this year when we've been talking, and this was a terrible year for the SEC, top to bottom, terrible year. And, we talked about the 40-point spreads y'all had in conference games and 35-point spreads and, not really getting a lot of good competition to make y'all stronger as the year went along. And just the failure to open up the offense. At some point, you need to have a quarterback who can throw the ball. And the only way you get good at doing anything is to practice it in real-time, game-time experience. And there was far little of that going on throughout the season for Alabama. So, you can blame Jalen. You can talk about putting in the backup quarterback who's always the most popular person on the campus. But if you don't let him throw the ball in games and really get a lot of practice, then you know what? Whose fault is that?
Who is it? Whose fault is it? Nick Saban? That's the only one I can blame.
You know exactly whose fault it is. It's the coach's fault. It's not the kid's fault. You think the quarterback is calling? You think Nick Saban's quarterback is changing the play?
But Russ, let me counter this, okay? When you push up a bear in a corner, you're going to get a fight. I think what you have said is a lot of what they're going to be using inside that locker room. Nobody respects us. Everybody picks on Alabama. Nobody believes that you should be here. Don't you think this team has some fight, that they'll come out and they'll respond to guys like you and many others that doubt they can get the job done? I mean, don't you think there's a little fight in this team in Tuscaloosa?
I think there's a tiger inside this team. Absolutely. In fact, and don't I expect, I was talking to someone the other day who shall remain nameless, a coach. And, Nick's team has always been known as a team, whether it was LSU or even back to Michigan State. Nick's defenses have always been known as defenses that, let's just say, will play through the whistle. And I expect, for those of you who don't know what that term means, it means take an extra step, which, by the way, I'm perfectly comfortable with. I like aggressive defenses that will, play very physically. And I expect to see a whole hell of a lot of that in this game. I expect to see Bryant take a hit on, as a guy who, I cover the whole country, but as a guy who specializes in the SEC, I hope that Nick's defense plays through the whistle every single play. That's Alabama's chance to win this game. Bryant needs to feel it on every single play.
Wow. And force him to make mistakes. Russ Mitchell, collegefootballnews.com, lead SEC columnist. Let's go to Oklahoma and Georgia. Russ, what's your breakdown of this game?
Baker Mayfield's really impressive all year long. And for those that have a problem with some of his more colorful on-the-field behavior, if he was your quarterback, you'd love him. This cat is a competitor. I really have enjoyed watching him play. If you watch the Big 12 championship game, he was unbelievable in that game. Really, it was as if he knew every single play that the defense was running. He knew immediately where to go to with the ball. If you're a Georgia coach, if you're Kirby and you're watching that Big 12 tape, you're thinking to yourself, good Lord, do we have ourselves a monumental task. But I think Georgia's cut up for it. Georgia has the number one pass defense in the SEC. The pass efficiency defense, they're the second best pass efficiency defense in the SEC. You can argue they didn't face a quarterback all year like Baker, and I'd agree because he's obviously, in terms of being able to run that Oklahoma offense, probably the best quarterback in the country. People say, where will he go in the NFL? I don't care where he'll go in the NFL. In terms of college football play, he's the best college football quarterback right now. But I like this matchup for Georgia despite that. I like how Georgia's defense plays. I like their speed and their efficiency. We've seen them when they have played against, like, for example, Stidham, who tore, I think did a very good job against them the first time. They came back the second time and were very ready for him. And I think with Kirby having the time to prepare for this game, 4 weeks to prepare, I think they'll be ready. And I like the Georgia Bulldogs to represent the SEC coming out of that Rose Bowl.
Okay. Let me go to something that's happening here in this state that we're in. Not only that game on Monday night, but what do you think about Matt Canada and Coach Orgeron and all the different things about LSU?
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Is your show broadcast in Louisiana? I'm wondering how much I should talk about.
Only via the internet, and I'm not sure they have too many of those in Baton Rouge.
That's beautiful right there. It is I can't say the word that I was going to use on the air. It is FUBAR in Baton Rouge right now, man. The situation in Baton Rouge has spiraled out of control. So, and now, Lowell Narcisse, that backup quarterback they have, don't be at all surprised if he's gone. If you saw that Feldman tweet last week about how Lowell is in the running still with Miles Brennan, the backup quarterback, to see who will be the head quarterback, the top quarterback next year, you're kidding yourself. That was all Coach O trying to make it so Lowell will stay. Because if Ensminger is going to get the head job, think about this. LSU will now have a head coach, Ed Orgeron, and an offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger, who nobody else in America wants. How does that happen? How do you go from being a program, LSU, which was like next to Alabama as the greatest team in the SEC and arguably, the best teams in the country, and in the span of 5 years, you go to having a head coach and an offensive coordinator that literally no other team in college football wants as their head coach or offensive coordinator. How does that happen? And if you're smiling right now as an Alabama or Auburn fan, it's not good for you. You want to beat LSU, yes, but you don't want LSU losing to Troy. When LSU loses to Troy, that hurts your pocketbook. Because ultimately, if the conference isn't making it doesn't have elite programs, A, you don't have the better programs to play to get stronger as the year goes along, and B, it costs you money, costs your school money. Because what helps us make money is when our teams are elite. So, what's going on in Baton Rouge right now, how Joe Oliva still has a job is beside. How he messed up the Jimbo Fisher thing, and it's not just him, it's King Alexander and a bunch of other folks in Baton Rouge. But they messed up. They could have had Jimbo Fisher 2 years ago And that whole debacle with Les Miles at the halftime of the Texas A&M game. So they've gone from not having Jimbo Fisher to now having Bergeron as their head coach and Emsminger as their offensive coordinator. And they won't get a dual-threat quarterback for the next 5 years.
Russ Mitchell, certainly LSU's got their problems, but according to you, so Russ, I mean, we got to come up with something. We got to come up with something fun. like, okay, Russ, if Alabama wins, will you come on at some point next week? You pick the day. If Alabama wins, and you not only you'll eat some crow from me, but you'll take a few callers because they are ticked off at you right now.
If Alabama wins, I will come on for a half an hour, and we can do 15 minutes worth of call.
Okay.
But it's not going to happen, brother. Alabama's going to lose this game, and I think this is a bad matchup for the Tide, and I expect Alabama to lose by 12 to 14 points.
Russ, I would say I appreciate your conversation, but I really don't.
Y'all have a good time down there in Nolens. That's a fun place to go and have a game. Go to Coop's Place. I don't know if we're allowed to plug places, but there's a neat little restaurant down there called Coop's Place. No reservations. One of my favorite places in all the world. And drink some Abita beer and eat some gumbo and red beans and rice and enjoy yourself.